Hello. Today I would like to share with you some information about one of my favorite animals, bears. Bears are often misunderstood as being angry or aggressive and are frequently depicted as showing their teeth or standing on their hind legs or like they're growling at somebody. But the truth is, bears are actually pretty chill animals. They are not mean, they're not malicious. Bears are actually normally shy, retiring animals that have very little desire to interact with humans. Unless they're forced to be around humans they need to be around a food source, they usually choose to avoid us. They're actually happier not being close to us. So if they are showing aggression, then something or someone has ventured too close to something that's important to them, like food or their cubs, or they just feel threatened. Speaking of food, bears need to eat enough food for the entire year in about a 6-month time period. Each winter, curled snug in their dens, brown bears endure a months-long famine. They will not eat or drink. So the more fat a bear stores on its body, the higher its chances of surviving the winter. Did you know that a bear can burn through more than a third of its weight during torpor? That's right, I said torpor. While many people think that bears are hibernators, they actually participate in a similar, though not exact, practice. Instead of hibernating, bears fall into a deep sleep called torpor. Bears can be in torpor for more than 100 days without eating, drinking, or even passing waste. The main difference between hibernation and torpor is that during torpor, the animal is able to wake up easily if it's hurt or threatened by predators. Pregnant female bears actually wake up from torpor, give birth, and then go back to sleep. So in contrast to the famine of winter or spring, Katmai National Park's brown bears rapidly regain weight in the summer and in the fall. Incredibly, they can sometimes gain as much as 1 kilogram, that's over 2 pounds of fat per day. One of the best places on earth to observe the transformation of these bears gaining so much weight so rapidly is on the Brooks River in Katmai National Park. This is in Alaska. This photo, it's actually 6 photos, demonstrates the dramatic weight gain of one of the Brooks River's more recognizable bears, number 480, also known as Otis, from early July to October of 2014. As you can see here, he gains weight. The dates are listed here, but they're really small. This bear is not the largest on the Brooks River, but he does weigh about 600 pounds in the middle of summer. But in the fall, just before he goes into his den for torpor, he weighs about 900 pounds. That's about 300 pounds of weight gain in just a few months. So the main source for this fat is the sockeye salmon of the Brooks River. Salmon provide the energy necessary for bears to grow large and fat over the summer and in the fall. Katmai's bears are larger and achieve greater reproductive success compared to bears that don't have salmon in their diet. So in Katmai, most of a bear's yearly calories come from salmon. So how do they get salmon? Well, each year, tens of millions of sockeye salmon leave the North Pacific, where they normally live, in salt water. And they are instinctively driven to return to the exact spawning grounds where they hatched 4 or 5 years earlier. For several 100,000 salmon, the path leads up the Brooks River. So near the summer solstice, so this is about June 20th to 22nd, these sockeye salmon began migrating into the Naknek River from Bristol Bay. From there, the salmon swim into Naknek Lake, and then they reach the Brooks River. The salmon swim upstream on the Brooks River, reaching Brooks Falls. Here at this waterfall, you can see the salmon jumping up the waterfall, trying to continue their journey. But this barrier it slows the salmon down, so it results in many of them getting stuck there. So bears have learned that this is a great place to fish for salmon, and many of them will linger here. In the last months before entering their dens, bears experience something called hyperphagia. So normally, the chemical leptin is released in an animal to tell their brain, hey, I'm full, it's time to stop eating. But during hyperphagia, in the couple of months before bears enter torpor, leptin is suppressed, so bears don't feel full. They just keep eating and eating and eating. Bears at Brooks Falls have been observed eating up to 40 salmon in one day. So with each salmon containing about 4,000 calories, that's over 150,000 calories in one day. Another thing to know about these bears is that the bears at the Brooks River are assigned numbers for monitoring, management, and identification purposes. So inevitably, some bears acquire nicknames. But let's remember that naming a wild animal is not without controversy. Is it appropriate to name wild animals? Personnel at many bear watching areas in Alaska, like Brooks River, attach names to frequently seen bears. These serve to help people identify, track, and manage the animals. However, names undoubtedly alter the way in which we relate to an animal. For some people, a named bear, or even one with an ear tag or a radio collar, may seem less wild and more pet-like than an unknown wild animal. So with these things in mind, randomly assigned numbers are certainly more neutral than a name, but over time, a number may lead to just as much anthropomorphizing as a nickname. So no matter how we relate to these animals with either a name or a number, at the Brooks River, bears with nicknames are still wild animals. So let's go back to our fat bears. So we have these bears, they're putting on a couple of pounds a day for several months, and they end up being really, really fat. But we now know that in the fall, fat bears are healthy bears. So now it's on to the real question of this assembly. Which bear at Brooks Falls is the fattest bear? I would like to introduce to you Fat Bear Week 2020. Fat Bear Week is an auspicious celebration where Katmai National Park invites its online community, including you, to compare photos of bears from when they first visit Brooks Falls in the spring when they come out of their dens, to the photos of the same bears at the end of the summer before they go back into a den. This is a single elimination tournament to determine the fattest bear on the Brooks River. And your help is needed. So there's a website that you can visit. It's explore.org/fatbearweek. And you can cast your vote every day. So round 1 begins this week, Wednesday, September 30th. And the bears are paired up. And the bear with the most votes in each matchup advances on to the next round. But only one bear will be named the 2020 Fat Bear Champion. So let's meet the contenders in this year's tournament. First, we have the reigning champion. The 2019 Queen of Corpulence is Bear 535, also known as Holly. In early summer, Holly is a medium-large adult female with blonde ears, blonde fur, and pale tan-colored claws. By early autumn, she's usually very fat with grizzled blonde fur, and her appearance somewhat resembles the shape and color of a toasted marshmallow. Next up is 128, Grazer. Grazer is a large female with blonde fur and a long straight muzzle, and conspicuously large blonde ears. During late summer and fall, her fur is grizzled brown, and she is often one of the fattest bears to utilize the Brooks River. She can fish successfully in many locations, but in early summer, she prefers the lips of Brooks Falls, where she is an especially skilled angler. In early fall, though, Grazer is more cryptic and most often chooses to fish in the areas of the river away from the bear cams. Next, we have Bear 32, Chunk. Due to his size and strength, Chunk now occupies the top tier of the bear hierarchy. This allows him greater access to mating opportunities and fishing spots. Like most large bears, Chunk is not hesitant to displace others from resources that he wants. However, his behavior can also be enigmatic. In recent years, he's shown a tendency to wait patiently to scavenge leftover salmon and sometimes even plays with other bears. Next, we have 480, Otis. Otis is a master of patience and efficiency, especially in his preferred fishing spots like the jacuzzi. He rarely makes an effort to chase salmon like the younger, more energetic bears. While Otis occasionally appears to be napping or not paying attention, most of the time he's extremely focused on the water. Otis must compete with larger bears while still coping with the signs of aging. He was around 4 to 6 years old when he was first identified in 2001, which means he's now one of the oldest bears at the Brooks River. As bears age, they experience a variety of ailments, and Otis is no exception. In particular, he's currently missing 2 canine teeth, and many of his other teeth are quite worn. Next, we have 719, a young adult female with shaggy blonde fur and a dark face. In the fall, her coat becomes dark blonde, and she retains light blonde ears. At this time, she closely resembles her mother, 435, which we know is Holly. 747 is a very large adult male with wide-set, peg-like ears and a blocky muzzle. Few brown bears have ever grown as large as the bear who shares an identification number with a jet airplane. Although dominant bears can maintain their rank in the hierarchy through aggression, 747 typically keeps his status by sheer size alone. Most bears recognize that they cannot compete with him physically, and they yield space upon his approach. He was estimated to weigh more than 1,400 pounds in September of 2019, and he looks to be at least that big this year. 856 has been the river's most consistently dominant bear since 2011. He uses his size to intimidate other bears in order to gain access to food or potential mates. And if that doesn't work, 856 will fight, and he's apparently good at it too. Bears who have lost fights to 856 tend not to challenge him again. His status in the hierarchy is never assured, though. He must maintain it. If he doesn't, the other bears will not hesitate to displace him. So now, what are you supposed to do with all of this information? Well, go to explore.org/fatbearweek, and you can download your own bracket, and you can make your own bracket. This is similar to March Madness, how you make your own brackets before they're even released. Then, beginning Wednesday, September 30th, go to the same website, and each day you can vote on who you think has done the best job gaining weight this season for each pair. Each day, the votes will be considered final at 6 p.m. Alaska time, which is about 8 or 9 p.m. our time. And then stay tuned to see who is named this year's King or Queen of Corpulence. Have a great day.